welcome to Module 1, your official first content-based module of English 1060 Service Learning online with me, Professor Anderson, or Hannah. Happy you all have made it through to this point. I'm hoping that everyone has completed everything in that kind of introductory module, and I'll go over some of my response to that material today, so thank you for doing that. I also am hoping that you have already done the reading and taken the reading quiz for Module 1 before you get to this lecture. Otherwise, some of this information isn't going to make a lot of sense. So, pause this and go do that first if you haven't. Otherwise, cool, let's go. I always feel like I should have some kind of weird transition music there, like I'm doing a cold open, but I'm not. All right. So here are some slides to guide us, just to guide us a bit. You are in Module 1. Again, these are weeks 2 and 3 of our semester. So this module, this might be different for some of your other classes, but I work in 2-week modules, meaning our content for Module 1 is going to run February 8th through February 21st. All right, you get 2 weeks to work on this. The first week is for things like discussion board and the quiz. And the second week is going to be headed toward responses and then often finishing an assignment. So I will give you the rundown of all that today, but just reminding you, 2 weeks per module from now on. So here's what I'm going to do in this particular lecture. And I think as I've mentioned before, a lot of my lectures are going to be just walking you through and making sure that you know what you need to try to accomplish. Not a ton of content for me, especially early on, but I do have some highlights I want to point out today after I reflect on some of your first assignments that I've seen come in. But I do just want to point out a couple of things in the textbook and make a few comments about that chapter 3 that you read in the collection of material from the United Nations. Then I'll walk through Module 1 on Canvas and our calendar together. Here we go. So I'm recording this on February 4th, meaning I've gotten some content from many of you, and others I haven't gotten anything from yet, but nothing is officially due, as I look at my calendar again, until this Saturday, the 6th. So, no rush on that until the 6th. But from what I've been looking at, really digging what you guys are turning in, I am enjoying those Flipgrid submissions immensely. I am getting kind of a mix of responses on whether or not you'd want to write or do videos for discussion in your inventories. So for this module, we're going to switch over to writing, and then I'll kind of take a poll and see where we are and what we like better. But let's try writing this time, even though those videos are awesome. Thanks for all that inventory data. A lot of you are doing a really great job in following those instructions of giving me complete sentences, so thank you. My final word is to make sure all of the parts of your Canvas profile are completed, particularly an image and your pronouns, just so that we're all on the same page there. Get those up for me, okay? It will make our rosters look complete, and then I'll have all the information that I need and that others need to communicate with you best, okay? All right, that's what I got to say about that. Here are some highlights, again, kind of quickly to give you over the textbook. I don't want to ramble in these lectures for you. I just want to bring your attention to a couple of things. So here we go. This is all based on pages 1 to 17 of your textbook. And I keep holding it up because I have a hard copy. I know you all might be working from an online copy, but I'm assuming everything is the same. They've told me it was the same. Please let me know if it's not, okay? So, first of all, Ballinger, the author of your textbook, sets up the entirety of the Curious Researcher as a 5-week process. And I do like that if we were having to kind of rush through things, but because we are a 16-week semester, we are not going to do this in 5 weeks. It's definitely going to be extended, and you can tell just based on when you're assigned the reading that this textbook is lasting us the entirety of the semester, and we're reading all of it because I really do think Ballinger does a great job in contextualizing things for us, and he's in line with my own pedagogical perspectives, meaning my view of teaching, the art of teaching. So I want to make sure that we get everything out of this, especially because, you're paying for it, so I want you to use it. Anyway, so just be aware that we're not doing this in 5 weeks, even though he talks about a 5-week setup. It is extended. I like that he takes the time to make a distinction between a research report and a research essay. Traditionally, you've probably come from writing research reports, and that's probably why maybe even some of you I've heard are a little apprehensive or nervous about balancing like your own words with research and how you even make that interesting, because you're just so used to regurgitating or rewording content to be able to report it. But an essay, as you've read, is all about to attempt to synthesize information and present what you think based on what you've researched. Okay, I know it's kind of going over the theory in the beginning, but I do want you to just try to get comfortable with letting go maybe some of the preconceived notions you have about research essays. And I hope you got that. Okay, I hope you're walking away from this introduction feeling like, okay, maybe this is new. Okay, unless you had some progressive professors or teachers in the past that encouraged you otherwise. But a lot of the time up until now, you may have just been writing like to pass a test, and a lot of standardized tests are based on research reports rather than essays. So we're going to have a little bit more creative fun with this. Okay, cool. If we were in class together and we had, 3 days a week to see each other and have in-class discussions, I wanted to point out that I probably would have assigned you an extra piece of reading, and you can totally look this up if you're interested, but it's by Professor Patrick Stokes. It's from The Conversation. It's called No, You're Not Entitled to Your Opinion, because I think the conversation is fascinating. Basically, he argues that you're not entitled to your opinion. You're only entitled to what you can argue for or support, okay? Particularly if we're talking about having opinions like being respected in public discourse and taken seriously. So I know Ballinger does talk a little bit about apprehension of including your opinion or something that's just your opinion, but we really want to kind of think about what that means and how you're going to potentially become an authority in a sense after you've done all of this research, at least more authoritative than your other peers in your particular research, right? So be wary of that phrasing of opinion, and also just know that you're going to be doing the work insofar as you will have support for whatever conclusions that you do draw. Okay? How exciting. A couple more things about your textbook. I know Ballinger asks you as a student to consider by being in contact with your instructor about your purpose and your audience. So I just want to underline that your purpose really is going to be discovery. Again, I haven't given you like an assignment sheet for the essay, right, that we're writing over this whole semester, because we're doing it in steps. And so I don't want you to be thinking about what does your final 10-page essay need to look like and everything, because we are taking our time getting there, and we're doing a lot of things before we even consider what that setup is going to look like. But I do want you to just be aware that your purpose for this essay that you eventually write is going to be all about discovering something new. And as I talked about in your first video and you've read about in the syllabus, you're going to be picking a country and you're going to be doing research about a social justice issue in that country. So you're going to be discovering that. I'm hoping that's why I ask you, particularly if you are someone from the U.S., that you don't pick the U.S., because if you're from here, you've experienced things, you live here, you know some of the social justice issues. I want you to be looking into something that maybe you don't know much about it all. Okay, that's what's going to make this class interesting and sustained, because we are focusing on this one project throughout the whole semester. Cool. I do that a lot because I assume that I'm in person with you and I am looking for a response like, okay. So forgive me if that annoys you. I'm going to try not to so much. The third thing I want to mention here, many people are apprehensive about writing in first person, often because you've been taught, because of standardized testing, not to use I, not to speak in your own voice. But I want to encourage you to please use I. Okay, use I with me this semester. You'll also notice that even when you read academic pieces, the researchers speak in first or in we. They speak in reference to themselves as the authors. And because you are in control of your potential research and its presentation, you should be present here. Okay, that's what's going to make it more compelling. To know that you are involved in the synthesis. But again, that might all be or feel really big, but I hope that it makes sense in relation to what you've read about from Ballinger, and especially the example of the theories of intelligence that he gives, because that is a research essay. It is. But still, as you can see here on this slide, don't even think about the essay itself yet. We're in the process. Don't stress about it. Just wanted to give you a taste of what we're heading toward with this particular perspective in this textbook. A couple of things I wanted to mention about chapter 3. Okay, I hope you didn't read all 140 something pages. You just needed to read about those 10 in social justice in an open world out of, the United Nations. It might feel a little dense and scary. I actually hope it felt dense and scary, because I know the first time I looked at it, it was dense to me, even as an avid reader, right? And someone that does research often. But I needed to find something to give you to read that gave us a wide lens introduction into this complex issue with lots of different possibilities, lots of different lenses that you could come down on in the country that you do choose, and just to be aware generally of global social justice issues that are already in discussion, right? But I do want to take note that this particular publication is from 2006. So in research world, it's outdated pretty significantly. But I couldn't find anything newer. If you do, send it my way. But I wanted you to have something comprehensive. So even though this is a little older, it was just something that wasn't in an academic journal, so the language was a little bit more simplistic compared to some things in academic research journals. So forgive me if that scared you a little bit, but maybe it didn't. Maybe you just breezed right through it and it was fine. Whatever your experience was, deep breath, like that was just a way to introduce you to the content, and it's not something that we will revisit often. I just wanted you to know where your starting place was with understanding some things about global social justice. Okay, that was me basically giving you the lecture content of making sure to point out a couple of things in what you read. But now I just want to set you up to be successful in your assignments for Module 1. So you've done the reading quiz. You're finishing up this lecture. So you'll note that these are the final things here that you have to accomplish this week. So first is the discussion, then your discussion responses. If you do open this, you see that it's listed as 0 points only because I've already integrated those points into your discussion here, because your first post is 20 points and then your responses are 13 points, 7.5 apiece if you want to get mathematical. But I wanted Canvas to be able to remind you when your responses are due, because it's a different due date than your original discussion post. And then finally, your rationale for your country decision is due at the end of this module. And I'll talk about how we kind of get there by going through discussion. So now I'm going to show us in Canvas. I want to be able to explain what these things are going to look like. So discussion, first and foremost. Again, we're trying a written one since we had some varied responses about whether you wanted to do videos or writing. So here we go. Saturday, February 13th, okay, by the end of that day, is when your first discussion is due in writing, okay? Then Wednesday the 17th is when you need to have your responses in. Of course, if you all do your submissions of your first posts early, then you can do your responses early. These are just the dates that I absolutely need everything by, okay? So just keep that in mind. I am setting this up so you can't see the posts of anyone else until you submit yours. I am requesting, hoping that you don't do that move where you submit a period just so that you can look at other people's posts and take from them, and then you go back and edit your own posts. That's technically cheating, so don't do that, okay? Don't do that. Just answer the questions. So here they are. Here, this first part, right here, 250 to 350 words. So keep it simple. Don't stress too much. If you really can't get there and you feel like you've exhausted what you have to say, okay. But I also want something that's interesting to read and that is worth our time, okay? So your first question here is, how did you conceptualize research essays before completing the Curious Researcher introduction? Are you walking away from the reading with any new concepts about research essays? Explain. So, what new stuff did you take away from Ballinger, if anything? Or did you already assume you could do all of these things? Okay, so tell me what you're thinking just about research essays in general. Number 2, how would you define global social justice in your own words? How would you define it? Okay, I'm even having trouble defining it, so I want to see some of your definitions. How do we define social justice, but then when we attach global to it, how does that change the definition? I'm hoping that maybe you don't do a whole bunch of Googling here. If you do, because you just so desperately don't know where to start, make sure you link us with anything that you pull from or you get inspired by. And please, please, for the love of God or any other secular being, don't quote from Wikipedia. Don't do it, okay? It's not worth it. Not a valid source, okay, because we don't know who wrote it. It's compiled by a bunch of people that don't necessarily have any credentials, and that's why we stay away from citing it. You can absolutely go to their sources at the bottom and look and see if those will work for you, but definitely don't just pull from the first sentence of Wikipedia, okay? Please. The third question here is headed toward your quote-unquote major assignment for this particular module. For your research project, you will need to choose one country on which to focus your social justice research. This should not be your home country or the USA. What country would you potentially like to research and why? Discuss 2 to 4 options. What social justice issues do you know already exist in these countries? Again, if you do any Googling, link the sources. Stay away from Wikipedia. I ask you to think about 2 to 4 countries because I have a hunch that we might pick some of the same ones. But the goal here for our course is to not have anyone doing the same country, okay? So I'm actually going to have you end up having to kind of fight for it in words in the country rationale assignment if you do pick the same one. So just be aware of that. Of course, give us your top, but then give us a couple more options just in case. That's what you have to do for your post, okay? Just that. Keep it simple. Now, in responding to your peers, and I know I feel like I don't love discussion boards, but for online classes, we have to figure out a way to connect with each other and get close to what in-class discussion would feel like. So bear with me and we'll make adjustments as we need to. What I don't like is that very memeable classic, oh, hey, I like how you added 2 and 2 to get 4. Good job. I really am hoping that these responses won't feel like BS to you. I hope they'll feel useful. So I've given you some questions to consider to spark some really solid responses. You don't have to answer all of these questions in every response. You do not, okay? You don't really have to use any of these questions. But if you want to feel like you're giving like good response, good discussion, promoting some kind of engagement, I would look at these questions to help you. You need to have at least 3 sentences, okay, in each of your responses, just so that they're, something meaty, something worth your time. So here are some questions you can consider. What questions do you have about the post? Is there something confusing and weird? Okay. Do you have any knowledge about the countries that your peer has listed? What can you share? So we can help each other in this way. Did you pick the same country or countries? Are you willing to part with your choice, or are you going to fight and challenge your peer for that particular country? Okay, go ahead and put that out there. Did you learn something new from the post? Does the post link reliable sources? Why or why not? So if someone messed up and linked Wikipedia, call them out on it. Better you guys do the calling out than me. Okay, so double check that. And then anything else that you can imagine that might be relevant or important or supportive. Okay, that's what you should think about when you're completing your responses. Finally, I have a note here that any images or memes or anything like that are always appreciated within your responses, just so that we can keep the discussion, not super boring. I hope this doesn't feel super boring, but we'll see. Always willing to hear your feedback on that. So that's your discussion and your discussion responses, all right? The final thing that you're going to do for this module is your country decision and rationale. And here's what I need from you. All right, you can just click on the assignment. Here's what I need. After completing all other parts of this module, including the responses to your peers' post and discussion, you could submit your country decision and rationale. So make sure you've done the discussion and gotten some feedback and seen what others are planning on doing. I really hope you don't just see this and do it as soon as this module becomes available, because otherwise our discussion is pointless. Okay, make it matter. Have some engagement with the content before you get into this. But here's what you got to do. Simple assignment. I would love to see it in MLA formatting. Okay, you can look at the Curious Researcher, page 192, figure A1, if you need to know how to set up a document in MLA. I'm really just looking for the correct header information and the right margins. So make sure you have that there. I would like your title for this assignment, in this case only, to be the name of the country that you've chosen. And then the body of this assignment in paragraph form, so don't do 1, 2, 3. Give me just a paragraph or paragraphs of why you chose the country. If you have any personal interest or relationship to the country and why, explain that. What social justice issues are you aware of in this country already? And then finally, that question of, is there any competition for this country by any of your other peers on discussion board? Do you anticipate someone else wanting to fight you for it? If so, why should you be the one to research it? And if there isn't any competition for it, why do you think that is? Did you already just make a good argument in discussion, or do other people not know that your country that you chose even exists? Okay, that's absolutely an option. So that's what I'm looking for with your decision. I just want to know what your kind of plan is, because then I'll be able to help you navigate the proposal, which is something that we'll work on in this following module. But for now, just kind of think about, what do you want to look into? Okay, which country do you want to look into? What are global social justice issues? What social justice issues exist here? Just generally, we're doing just a very skimming kind of experience over this content, okay, just to get our feet wet. All right. I want to show you too that on your calendar, and here I'm just looking at 8:10 just so I don't put all of my Comp 2s up, but I just want to show you that you can look at the calendar here to see the due dates for this module. So here's today. I told you I'm recording on the 4th. Technically this module doesn't start until the 8th, but again, I always say that I drop it on the Friday before, so that if you wanted to get started over the weekend because you have other things competing for your time, like work or family, you can start this very early. But technically it starts on the 8th so that you have that week to do the discussion and the quiz. But then I need your responses by the 17th. And then I need your country decision and rationale by the 20th. Okay, there we go. You'll see the rest of this isn't full because those modules are still hidden. But that's it. That's it for you. Just wanted to draw your attention to that on the calendar. And then let me just go back here to my final slide for you, which now that you know what to do for Module 1, here's a reminder that I am available to you for office hours and like these times and by appointments. I'm really just sitting on camera on WebEx in my office waiting for you to pop in, okay? You can pop in for any reason. So I'm there. Don't be shy. And even if you just want to say hi for the sake of making some kind of connection, if you're bored at home, happy to chat. But good luck. And I know you can do it. I'm super excited to see what countries you all choose and what you think of this textbook, okay? So thanks, and I'll see you next lecture.